Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issue, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the Ep10 method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session in both English or in French, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV therapy and coaching services at 301-325-1550. And our website can be found at lifecoachddanamzallag.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 10th and last episode of season 8, a very special guest and business coach, Nick Davies from ProAdvisor Coach. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Nick, the floor is yours.
I love that approach, and I feel honored that I'm the last one of this season. That's pretty cool.
Yes, number
10. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Dan. I appreciate it. Yeah, as you said, I'm a business coach, and I'm a super passionate business coach, and I have a background growing up in England. It doesn't make me bilingual, unfortunately, but I did grow up in a different country. I always used to think it was great that English was my first language. I thought that's fantastic. Most people speak English. Now, as I grew up, I realized that was opposite, of course. I didn't have the opportunity to have a different language, unfortunately. But yeah, I grew up in England. I've spent 20 years working in the corporate world, working for banks all over the world. Fantastic experience. And now about 12 years ago, I started to think about, like, what do I want to do when I grow up? And I started to move into coaching and move to America. And I've worked with, at this point, hundreds of different clients over thousands of different hours. I was a Tony Robbins coach for a long time. And when I moved to North Carolina, I started working with ProAdvisor Coach. And now I get to work with people that I want to every single day, and people working in businesses, working on their finances, working on their spirituality, working on their health goals, working on their marriages, you name it. And it really fills me up, and I get to do it every day, and super exciting. And from a personal perspective, I'm married, my lovely wife, Christine, and we have 2 girls, 5 and 15 months.
Beautiful. Well, Nick, thank you so much for being here on the Happiness Journey podcast, because, stories like yours, going through the different challenges that you went in life, trying to find yourself spiritually and professionally, personally, etc. This is what our listeners love to listen about. They want to be able to hear success stories. And now a lot of people tell me, well, then all this is great, success and success after success, but what about failure? So tell us about the failures that you experienced through your life to become the person that you are today.
A lot is said about failure, I think, Dan, and I think it is. There's a reason why a lot is said is about it, right? I often say that, it's a cliche. Cliches are cliches for a reason, right? They come from things that are real, and I believe that the perspective that we should take is that we either win or we learn, and so sometimes that is read as failure, and so be it. Right, so be it, because it's in the failure when we actually see the big things. It's the failure that gives us our biggest opportunities. So I learned to embrace that, and it gives me massive freedom, because I don't care if it doesn't work out like I expected to do, because I know that I'm always going to learn something. Mm-hmm. So it's either you get what, and here I actually have a formula for it, which I work with my clients on, and because it's not focused on the failure, it's focused on the action, and the action, I believe it goes like this, right? Like, so there's 2 parts to this. So if you take new action, you get new results. And that has an A and a B I'll come back to. Or you don't take any new action equals no new results.
Correct.
Really simple, right? And everyone knows this, but I want to be really clear about pointing it out, because clarity is power. So no new action equals no new results. So back to the new action equals new results has an A and a B. So it's A is new action, you get the result you expected, or A, B is new action, you get a different result. Either way, you get to play the game again. Mm-hmm. So that's how I think about overall. But so I don't even think about failures. Like, if I go back into my memory bank and think about failures, like, nothing really comes back up. But if I think about learning opportunities, there's plenty of that for sure. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing for me is I go back and I think about things. It's like, man, I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I talk a lot about awareness, because I believe that's the starting point for everything. It's not everything, but it's the starting point. So if I think about, like, where I want to be, I would go back and kind of shake that person and go, like, anything's possible here. You can go after and do what you want. And I just didn't believe it for myself. That's the totality of my life experiences up and probably until the last 10 years, probably even less, if I'm being really, really honest. So it's those type of opportunities that I've seen for myself that really kind of allow me to continue to move forward. And I'll get passionate about it because I know that's available for everyone else as well.
That is so true. And also that's the reason why, because you did make a very good point when you talked about the learning opportunities that you had, because the acronym FAIL is first attempt in learning. And a lot of people, what they're afraid of or what they fear the most, and again, fear is the acronym of false expectation appearing real. Now we're talking about a lot of acronyms here, but the thing is that they fear failure, which is quite interesting, those two acronyms. And because they're afraid of people telling them, well, I told you so. You see, you should have not started this business. You should have not started this venture. You should have started. So they only are so focused about what other people think about what they're doing in their lives. And this is why you're talking about this freedom, this feeling of peace when you stop caring about what other people think. And this is what a lot of people focus too much their attention on, Nick. And changing the mindset on how you perceive your life, you're either in personal or professional or whatever it is, it's to start living your life and not living the life of someone else. So in your approach as a business coach, how do you change people's mindset to be able to stay away from this kind of like mind prison that they live in, to be able to start living the life that they so crave for?
Wow. Yeah. Mind prison. I mean, that's exactly what it is, right? I mean, let's call it what it is. When that's exactly it is. You're trapped in your own mind. The only limitations that we have are limitations that you create for yourself. I mean, absolutely. And I'm going to start using that, if that's okay. A mind prison, right? Because to scare people, right? Well, I think it comes back to that awareness part as a starting point, because even if you are in a mind prison and you felt some pain and some awareness of being in that mind prison at some point, most of the time, humans can endure a lot of things. We're able to move forward and we're able to take care of whatever else is there, and we can live through a lot. And so that pain of being in the mind prison, after a while, starts to fade, and you forget that you're in the prison. You get institutionalized in your own way of thinking.
Correct.
And so part of what I do is give people a shake, whack the cages of the prison, if you will, because it's like, goodness, that's painful, but it's useful, has a lot of utility. And when I start working with people, I ask for a few different things. And in my particular version of who I work with, I say I only work with successful people. I work with successful people that are looking to be more successful. They know that there's so much more and they just can't quite get there yet. So they've tasted it. They know what that is, and they know that there's so much more. Now, that's enough just to give people a little like, what does that mean to me? Do I consider myself successful? Might I consider myself successful? And either way, it opens a door to different type of thinking. So I'm always even starting with that mindset, offering people new perspectives. And then the second thing I ask for is, I only work with people that I'm looking for people that are open to new perspectives. And secondly, to kind of go back to the point about action, are open to taking action on those new perspectives. And to kind of get a buy-in and ask permission, I'm asking them permission, but really I'm asking them to give themselves permission. So that's the second point. And the third point is, are you hungry? Are you hungry to go and create something more that's out there? Have you seen something out there where perhaps there's examples in the outer world, you're hungry to go to it? So those are the three things that I start with. And it's a continuous focus, always on checking in on that mindset. Where are we? And I often say to my clients that the first fundamental thing that I'm always looking for when we work together is, are you in a resourceful state right now? Are you coming onto our call in a resourceful place? Are you coming and looking, no matter what the situation is, are you coming doing it from a resourceful place? Meaning, whatever it is, I'll take care of it. Versus an unresourceful place of, I can't do it today. I'm not there. I'm not ready. What are you going to give me, coach? Right? I'm not going to give you anything. Right. So that's that resourceful place. So it's to answer your question, is there's some setup in that, an expectation about how we'll work together, but it's a continuous process. And same thing that I would ask my coach for me, and I set my environment up to help me do that all day long as well, because I believe the default experience of life is an erosion of the quality of our life. So we have to be very intentional about continually pushing forward.
Now, do you feel in your career, Nick, and especially the successful people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis versus those who actually are just starting up, new graduate students, whatever it is, but do you feel that successful people also are experiencing limited belief about them crossing that barrier from being successful to being uber successful? Because again, they say, okay, well, I've reached my financial freedom. I have my big 10,000 square feet home with picket fence, etc. But how do you bring them to that uber level of success? I mean, is there somewhere in the mind that stops them from achieving greater results?
Yeah, I believe that 100%. There always is. There is no limits to what you can get to and what you can create and how many people you can help and who you can give back to. Now, I think that there's plenty of examples of this where people that are uber successful already and they go, okay, now I'm done. I'll sell my company, let's say, for billions of dollars, and they haven't got to work another day in their life. Far from it. But what those people tend to do is then, they go and sit on a yacht for 3 months. And I've heard it explained a few times that, hey, I retired, and what happened was that happy hour just got earlier and earlier in the day. I didn't know what happened. So I went back to, and they go back and start a new business or start a new venture, because I believe it's always a question of growing and contributing. If you're not doing those two things, you don't get fulfillment. So I think it never stops. So yes, I absolutely believe that wherever you are, whatever level of success you're at, and that's completely relative, of course, and there's no wrong or right. That's completely everyone's version of that. There's always a limit. The only limit to where you are, I should say, is that belief that you put yourself in a box. I like kind of think about this in perfection sometimes. People say, I want to be perfect. One of the things that I share all the time is optimize for progress over perfection, progress over perfection. And when I first understood that, my thought was, hey, Dr. Dan, it's progress over perfection until you can see perfection and then go for perfection. And then I realized that no, it's actually progress over perfection always. Because as soon as you can see perfection, the only way you can create perfection is by creating a box, creating that limiting belief. And so if you can get to that perfection, it means you've done it all. There's nothing left. And by doing that, you create yourself a limiting belief. Now, it may be very helpful to create milestones. In fact, we have to do that to get to your goals. But ultimately, you should be thinking about always progress. What's the next level of progress? I work with so many people that have been really successful in their careers. I'm thinking about a guy I work with in financial services. I've been doing it for 30 plus years, super successful in his business. It's a clear 7-figure earner. And he still gets stuck in some of the rotation of what he does every day.
Okay.
And it's difficult for him to see a way out because of the patterns that he's running. And it's so clear. And it's one of our privileges that we get to work with people, is we get little snippets of their life and come in to see different perspectives, how he could get to that next place. And he's at a place where he can see his own limiting beliefs, and as much as he will share them.
Okay.
And the overriding limiting belief is that he cannot override his limiting beliefs. So like the global version of those individual beliefs. And that's something that we're working on, and he's making a lot of progress to get to that place. But it's a fascinating thing for sure.
That's interesting that you mentioned this, because Albert Einstein once said, and let me try to quote him verbatim. He said, the mind that creates the problem cannot be the same mind that resolves it or that fixes it. So how can he know about his limiting belief, but yet not know how to solve them?
Exactly. I mean, it talks to identity. And I've got a number of my colleagues who have that quote as their signature in their email.
Okay.
It's excellent. Absolutely. Again, it just comes from a place of, well, are you willing to look for something different? Are you willing to go on the exploration of looking and creating a new identity, which allows you to know that you can break through any limiting beliefs? What's the belief that you need to have that's going to be most empowering here? And then are you willing to go on a journey from that? And that permission, I always find, is often the first step to go on that journey. Okay. If you can ask that question and get the feedback of, yes, I am, that's a great start. It could even be, yes, I am, but.
Always a but.
Always a but. Yes, I am, but. And that could be a great coachable moment also. And that allows us just a little bit of light in a dark room. Mm-hmm. That's the point to get to. And look, if you've run a pattern for 30 years and you want to change that pattern in 30 minutes, Like you can make a difference for sure, you can get a result, but we also want to know that like that pattern is likely going to try and push itself back in, and that's okay as long as we're making progress. I had a client jump on yesterday, and I only work with this lady once a month. I work with the leader of this company. I work with her once a month. And she was, oh, we're really worried to jump on a call today with you because, I didn't do all the things I said I was going to do. I said, Julie, that's exactly what I expect. How long have you been doing this for? Years and years and years. Well, like you made this progress. Like it's not going to all flip itself around, right? It's progress over perfection again. Mm-hmm. So she was going for the perfection of exactly what she said, and therefore not meeting the perfection. We're more likely to give up. If we're going for progress, we can always win. Progress equals happiness, as far as I'm concerned.
So do you, in your perspective here, Nick, do you feel that it's better to be the jack of all trade and a master of none? Because then the master is perfection, the jack of all trade is progress. So what would you say in terms of in your career? Isn't it better to know one thing perfectly than a lot of things just random or just like too general?
I would actually, if I may, Doctor, is thread the needle through that.
Okay.
Because I believe that to be the master of something is to know that there's only the journey of mastery, okay, and not to be perfect at something. And that's what enables me to keep on growing. Right. And the other side is as well, if I thought that I had to be the master at something, perfect at something, then I wouldn't do it until I got to that level. And there's no way that I would be able to get to that level without the practice of doing it. Okay. So I'd be stuck. I think that's what makes a lot of people stuck, because I can't do it yet. I'm not ready. It's like, well, you never will be until you start. So I believe it's more of a commitment to the journey of the mastery of a particular area or focus. And sometimes you can go and be flexible in terms of how much time you spend in those different areas. And it doesn't mean you can't be good at multiple things. Okay. But I just don't think you can be all of those things at once. So I agree. It's definitely a question to be asked, and it's really relevant. Let's think about, okay, where do you want to focus your commitment to continue to move forward? I always think about, I don't know how true this is, but maybe I got it from movies and stuff, but I've never actually been to Japan, or I've traveled a lot. I've never been to Japan. I always think about the focus that I perceive some Japanese people have about either be like creating samurai swords or have a very specific mastery of an art that they're constantly doing it forever, the same thing forever, for 80, 90 years of their life. And when they die or are nearing the end of their life, like they're still doing the same things, because repetition is the mother of skill.
Yes.
When you first start out in doing anything, those first whole bunch of reps, you're going to learn a lot of stuff quick. Once you get to a place where you're an expert level of something, the impact of the reps does not show as quickly, but they still are all adding up. Mm-hmm. And that's how I perceive the impact of how our life goes, right? It's still keep going. What else can I get better today? So as soon as I think that I'm good at something, I cease to become any better of it, and therefore I automatically get worse.
Yes, and to reiterate what you just said, just like your image in the background with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the movie Pumping Iron, you know that muscle maturity only happens after 35 or 40 years old. But yet you see a lot of professional bodybuilders that work out like crazy, of course, use anabolic steroids and all that for enhancement. But the thing is that to grow muscle, you need to repeat, you need to do like high repetition to be able to do always the same exercise. But then again, the body will get to a plateau. It will start learning your strategy, and it will stop growing. So then at the same time, you need to tweak things a little bit to be able to kind of like reboot your body to continue growing. So is that something what you just mentioned in terms of similarity, or in terms of like the analogy behind it? Or what would you mean about repeating the reps over and over again to be able to achieve better results?
Thank you so much. I can see just by you asking that question, we've had different journeys, of course, but we've gone through very, very similar thought processes to get to that experience. Absolutely. And you mentioned in the Arnold Schwarzenegger picture, in my late teens, early 20s, all I did was work out and go out with my friends. That was like that's my whole life, was working out, trying to look good, working out, trying to look good, working out, trying to look good. The thing that jumps out most to me right now is the first time where I started okay, for me, working out was a license to eat. I always struggled with my weight as a child. And so it's like, well, I can start working out. I can eat what I want. This is fantastic. Yes. And of course, there is there's a lot of truth on that, but it's not a complete truth. Like everything in the world, it's not a yes or a no, in or an out. There's a spectrum to these things. And I remember going on my first, what I call the time a cutting routine. And I remember losing like 30, 40 pounds of the fat that I put on with the muscle and thinking, yeah, fantastic. Everyone was saying, you look great. It's like, yeah, this is great. And then I was like, okay, great. Now what? Right? Like now, because, oh, can I go back to eating the same way I was before? It's like, of course not. It's like, wow, that was such a slap in the face for me. Mm-hmm. And there's so many principles to take away from that. But to be more direct with your question, I think it's a case of standardizing before you can optimize. And that question you asked is a person that you've done a lot of standardization and a lot of optimization. We have to standardize first. So most people don't even get through the standardization of the consistency of, let's say, let's follow the metaphor in or the analogy in the gym, to even bother thinking about what happens when you hit a plateau. But once you do get to that point, yes, absolutely. I think about it of different categories within the same genre, same as in business. Mm-hmm. So you can think about your business success overall, but then you can go deep into each of the micro areas within that business. Same with working out. Like you go deep into bodybuilding, let's say, and in order to shake up the plateau, maybe you focus on being a CrossFit athlete. Maybe you focus on powerlifting. Maybe you focus on martial arts. Maybe you focus on yoga. Maybe a combination of all those things work for you. But knowing what's the most important focus at that time allows you to keep moving, keep that adaptation going, because absolutely, left alone, things will stagnate and plateau and eventually get worse. And so that's where some people give up. They put on a bunch of muscle and they keep on pushing. They go, I'm just getting tired all the time. It's not working. I'm not getting better anymore. Maybe this is just where I am. Give up.
Yes, giving up, easy to do. Yeah. So for our listeners here, Nick, I'm not sure exactly when it comes to who is an entrepreneur, who is someone working for a company or whatever. I mean, we have like such a variety of different listeners here. But what would you recommend to someone who is starting out, who has the entrepreneurial mindset, who wants to be able to start their business? What would be the best advice? Now, I know that you're focused primarily on those who already achieved great success in their life, but those who are in that progress state, what would you recommend them to do? I know it's beside telling them, well, just start, but you have to start learning also to take calculated risk, because you cannot jump into something without optimally know what may come up soon. So you have to somewhat predict an unforeseen future, but yet at least to be able to appease your mind that all the money that you've invested, you're not going to lose it. So what would you recommend them in terms of this process?
There's so much there, Dr. Dan, of course. And, you mentioned the success, working with successful people. And I mentioned that also as well. But I think that's relative, right? If you've just started out in a business, there's always success you can find at a certain part of your life. I believe, hand on heart, that wherever you have, whatever's going on in your life, no matter how challenging it might feel, there's always things you can look back and find success. You can find your evidence for procedure for what success is, big or small, and then retrace the version of those steps in concept to create that next success. Mm-hmm. And so I think what I do, and perhaps what you do similarly, is look at like, what is that, and compress those steps and go, I've seen this work for hundreds of different people. There's nothing unique here. What's the unique version for you though? Right. And then use that stuff. So I think that's part of it as well, like talking around the mindset of it to go and have people realize that anything's possible. Hey, person, the entrepreneurial mindset wants to start a business. We're going to start from the premise that anything's possible. What do you really want here? What's the outcome you're trying to get to? What does a successful business look like? Like, I want to make loads of money. All right. What's loads of money? Or I want to make some money. Here's $1, get out of it. Right? Where do you want to get to? The more clarity, I'm always looking for clarity. Clarity equals power as far as I'm concerned. The more clarity you have, the easier it is to walk forward. And so creating that, most people think that they're clear. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I need a tool. I need something. I need someone to tell me. I know and I believe that everyone has everything they already need inside of them. So it's creating, okay, where are you now? What's really real for you? Being dirt honest about what's happening and what's going on. And then figuring out a relative endpoint of what you want to do in your business. Why do you want to start a business? Where do you want to get to? What's the depth of this? What's it going to give you? Who are you going to become when you get there? Why is it important for you? As we start to define that, we can go get people excited about it. Because when you're committed to something, there's always a way. And if there's not enough reasons for you to keep going, there'll be always more reasons for you to stop. And so that place is always going to be stacked. You want to stack the reasons. So that will be the place I start. And then once we get the solidity in where you're going and a commitment to do that, then we can build out a plan. Most people go to the plan first.
That's so true. Now, would you recommend, Nick, to do a reverse engineering of success, which means you see mentors that succeeded and you go where they are now to what they've been before? This way, it can allow them to be able to step back and see everything that they've done to, until the beginning, to be able to see what were the steps that were taken to be able to achieve the success that they have today. So is it a better approach to do reverse engineering of success than to start from scratch and then grow from there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I talk about all the people I've worked with, all the principles are the same. Agnostic of industry, agnostic of whether you're building a business or not. It's all the same principles that mean well from working out and looking after ourselves. They can be applied directly. I have a client who owns a martial arts gym down in Florida, and it's so funny how often it's a Thai boxing, Muay Thai, which I train a lot, and so it's something that's really familiar for me as well. But it's so funny how often we talk about his business, and he's constantly going, "Yeah, I'm always telling my students that. I always look at my fighters like all the same principles that apply." And absolutely, success leaves clues. Whatever business or area you want to be successful in it, go find someone who's had some sort of success in that and model some of the things that they've done. You're going to get some of the similar results. So you want to be clear for you what's most important in those different areas. Now, that's also a dangerous game to play because you also want to have the science of that success with the art of fulfillment. Because what is happiness for one person and what they actually get in the physical world isn't necessarily fulfillment in what you need the most, which is an individual to you.
That's so true. So in terms of, as you mentioned about the success means different to everyone, just as like happiness. Now, is there like a secret formula, Nick, that you would give someone who's starting out, especially our listeners, and tell them, hey, this is what you at least as long as you just start something. Now, don't think about all what can happen or not happen or all the things that you create in your mind or that you construct, and they may not be there. But is there like a secret formula to be able to just get started and then just go with the flow?
Yeah, I love this question because it makes me laugh for something I say oftentimes. There's people were looking for the silver bullet or the secret formula, right? It's like I often say, look, if there was a silver bullet, there isn't, but if there was a silver bullet, it will be that there's no silver bullet. So stop looking for it. That's the place I would think about it. But I do work in a process, right? Because these are all principles and concepts. And so how that process actually works is always a bit different, but the framework is always the same. The framework starts with, as we talked about a little bit, awareness. What's really true for you? Where are you? What are you committed to? How committed are you to it? How do you know you're committed? That's a big one. That's a huge one. I had a client the other week told me, we were doing an exercise, and he told me that all these areas of his life, he was 10 out of 10 committed to getting to his outcomes. So how can you possibly be 10 out of 10 committed everywhere? 10 out of 10, that means you're giving 100% of yourself everywhere. You can't even do that.
That's so true.
So it shows me that, and I believe most people aren't seeing what they're actually saying or what they're sharing and where they actually are. And so that's the place that we will come from as a starting point. So that's the awareness. The next part is to create the action. Like what is actually the plan. And then the third part is the immersive experience. That's working with a coach, working with someone, an accountability partner, if you will, on a starting level, whatever you can get to. But of course, I believe 100% that everyone should have a coach. I mean, that's like a no-brainer. It's like, if you've got a dentist, do you have a doctor? Do you have a CPA? Like, you should have a coach, right? If you want some sort of success, whatever that is, same thing. So get immersed. So it's understanding where you are, what's really true, creating a plan. And then the last A is that achievement, which is the constant process of always checking in. If you're flying from one side of the country or one side of the world to the other side of the world, guess what? That plane is always off target. But the reason why it looks like it's on target and it's flying straight is because it's constantly making adjustments. It's constantly making adjustments. It's that progress over perfection. Because if the perfection is that we're going to go in that route no matter what, and we're going to get there, you're going to be doing a lot of bouncing between, if we're going from East Coast to West Coast, be like, you'd be down in Mexico, up in Canada. Like, you need to be checking in every damn time, every week, max. Yeah.
Where can people find you, Nick?
People can find, I've been doing some experiments. My marketing team has been helping me getting some TikToks out there. So go search TikTok under Coach Nick Davies. I'm having some fun with that as well. I'd also like to share, for your viewers, listeners here as well, that you can go and find me at website achievers-mindset.com/tools. There's a couple of tools that I do for productivity on there as well, and people can sign up for my newsletter if they want to, and just some snippets of stuff in there. But been definitely playing around with my TikTok account, just bits and pieces of stuff to take into your day, because part of that success is just being surrounded with your environment that supports to be the person you want to be. And so that's my attempt to do that, and hopefully people will find some value from that.
Beautiful. Well, Nick, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time of your very busy schedule to join us. And thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story. Now, we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode. I'm also very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have for scheduled for season 9 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one that you listened to today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Thomas Edison once said, "Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always try one more time." Well, he did try again, but more like 1,000 times. Persistence pays off. And it certainly did for everyone else out there that believe in themselves and not give up. You will miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So might as well take one and see where you score. If you don't try at first, then dust it off and try again until you score. If it was that easy, every 7 billion humans on Earth would do the same and accomplish greatness, which is possible if they're really determined and not adverse to taking risk. So why only a few does it matter the outcome? Well, it is part of their DNA, and they never give up to achieving their goals. There's so much abundance out there, but only just a few takes the initiative to reach out and take what is theirs. So why can't you? My name is Dr. Dan Zallag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.